Hey, greetings. Michael Didier here. Thank you for joining me. Well, last week we finished our chapters. We actually had two chapters, one week, one the next week, on leprosy. Leprosy on the flesh, and leprosy, they called it a leprous plague on the flesh and a leprous plague in the house. Last week we talked about cleansing of that plague after it's gone away. How are we allowed to come back into the camp? And it's done by working with the priest. You know, I think I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I had to be wrong. I was talking about waterboarding the birds last week. Do you remember that? All right, it was goofy. You know, why do I assume that he's going head first? Can he go tail first? Would it make more sense that the stuff got on the tail and then you shook it? And that would be how you cleanse the leper. That would be how you cleanse the house. Of course. Yeah, that would make far more sense. We don't need to put the bird in head first into the blood and the water. So I stand corrected on that. I really thought about that and I thought, that doesn't work. Why am I even thinking that? We can turn the bird around, Michael. We could do that. All right, so we talked about that. We talked about if a house gets a leprous plague on it, and look at what it said. I just think this is so interesting, and I wonder if the leprous plague is what's coming on Israel is brought on us by Yahovah. He says here in 1434, look what it says. When you have come into the land of Canaan, he's talking to Israel's seed, which I give you as a possession. The seed gets the possession. The men get the possession. It's the men's house. The men have family. The men have servants, and the men have ger who dwell with them. He says, and I put a leprous plague in a house. Look at that. Who puts the leprous plague? Who put the leprous plague on Miriam? Look at here. And when the cloud departed from above the tabernacle, suddenly Miriam became leprous, as white as snow. Then Aaron turned toward Miriam, and there she was, a leper. Yahovah is the one who put this on her. He's the one who took it off her. But she still had to be outside the camp for 7 days. Don't talk bad about your master. It's going to get you in trouble. Well, from there, we went to chapter 15, and we talked about human emissions. Remember that? We talked about the Zav and the Zuv. The Zav is any kind of emission from the body. Could be spit, could be runny noses, could be sexually STD. It could be sperm. It could be blood. It could be more blood than usual. Depending on what's happening, we saw that these Zavs could be Zuv. Zuv are things that are abnormal. Abnormal, not normal discharges, but abnormal discharge. For a man, an emission of semen is normal. In the sexual act with a woman, it's normal. A woman in her menses, her period, is normal, a normal emission. And with that in mind, I like how Yahovah gave us these things. Remember, it was kind of a chiasm. A, B, C, D, D, C, B, A. Started with introduction, ended with conclusion. Then they had the male Zav, which is a Zuv, the abnormal Zav, then the normal Zav. They don't even call it a Zav or a Zuv. Same with the sexual act, male, female, normal. Not called a Zav or a Zuv. You're unclean until evening. You bathe and you're unclean until evening. That's it. Not going to touch anybody and get them unclean. With the female normal, though, we have the Zav of blood. She has to be set apart. Remember we talked about nada, separation, and she's going to be set apart for 7 days. But now we also had, for B, male abnormal zav, an unclean issue. This is something besides semen for a man. And for a female, blood, perhaps other things, that is in addition to the normal flow for the month. That is going to be treated as a zav zuv, or maybe a zuv zav. Probably is a better way to say it. Zuv zav. An unclean issue. Well, we talked about those things last week, and you can go back and listen to those. They're on tape. Let's continue with where we're off to this week. I want to go back to my Bible, and we're going to go to chapter 16. I've always been intrigued by this Day of Coverings. Day of Coverings. All you ever see with the Jews is Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur. But it's not a day of cover. It's a day of coverings. Who is covered on this day? The high priest. It says it over here on the right. On this day, the high priest makes a covering for many things and people. First, himself and his family. When we're talking about the high priest family, we're talking about his fellow priests, not his women and children and servants. If the man is covered, all the others are going to be covered as well. The holy is going to be covered. This is where the ark is at, and the mercy seat. Then he's going to cover the tent of meeting, the Olah altar, the bronze altar, and last but not least, all Israel. You got to be Israel if you want to be covered. And if you're covered, your families are covered as well. Your servants. And, well, are the Ger who dwell with you? Maybe not. Maybe they need to become Israel, huh? We'll get more light, I guess, as we go. I want you to see something. This is something I found in Yasher. I think it's pretty interesting. Are there shadow, or is Yom Kippurim? We're supposed to keep it every year for Olam, all generations, an everlasting Olam covenant. We're supposed to do these things. He's talking to Aaron. What is happening on this day? For the Jews, and I think for Jehovah's people, certainly is an important day. Is it more important than Passover? He gives us 2 times to do Passover, doesn't he? Only get 1 day to do the Yom Kippurim. Is one more holy than the other? They're both set apart days. I want you to see what happened in Egypt. In fact, I'm going to go here. This was the 9th plague. It says, and Elohim sent darkness upon Egypt, that the whole land of Egypt, Pathros, became dark for 3 days, so that a man could not see his hand when he lifted it up to his mouth. At that time died many of Israel's people. Hear that? Israel's people, we're talking about men, died during this time, who had rebelled against Jehovah, and who would not hearken to Moses and Aaron, and believed not in them that Elohim had sent them, and who had said, we will not go forth from Egypt, lest we perish with hunger in a desolate wilderness, and who would not hearken to the voice of Moses. And Jehovah plagued them. Who'd he plague? The people who rebelled. Are there going to be people with us in the wilderness, when Jehovah comes back, looks to me like he's going to raise up his people, kind of like he raised up Moses, all over the world. He says, I have scattered you in all the places where I will gather you. It appears to me that he's going to put these men, a pillar of fire and smoke over them. They're going to become the banners in the wilderness that we talk about in, I think it's Isaiah 5. Maybe 11, I think it's 5. When this happens, people are going to come to them. Will there be a great shaking of the earth at that time? I think there will be. So they're going to come to us. A lot of them are going to come to us. Why? Because there's where the protection and the victuals is at. You know, when Jehovah shakes the earth, there's not going to be grocery stores. There's not going to be trains. There's not going to be freeways. There's not going to be utilities. The cell towers are coming down. We are going to be brought into the wilderness once again. But Jehovah is going to take care of his people in the wilderness. Go to the pillar of fire and smoke. There are going to be some that are going to come to us because they know that's a place of safety. They know they can eat there. But you know what? They're not with us. They're there for the stuff, but they're not with us. And I think that's what's going on during Yom Kippurim. I see the final Yom Kippurim happening just before we go into the millennial kingdom. Is that possible? We're going to see today that there's going to be 2 identical goats that Aaron's going to receive from Israel's seed. They're coming from Israel's seed. But even though they're identical, one is going to be chosen to die and the other is going to be chosen to live, to be released into the wilderness, which may or may not be a wilderness. It may be the place of Jehovah's pasture. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Here was 3 days of darkness. And there were people during that 3 days of darkness who said they were Israel. But they died during that darkness. And it says, look what it says. And Jehovah plagued them in the 3 days of darkness. And the Israelites buried them in those days without the Egyptians knowing of them or rejoicing over them. This was a private cleansing of Israel. Is it possible that these men did not afflict their souls? Afflict their souls. What are we talking about when we're talking about afflicting our souls? Hitting ourselves? No, no, no. Soul, nefesh, thoughts, emotions. It's all about deep repentance. Father, we have failed. Our fathers have failed to become into your image and to reflect your kingdom on the earth. I'm so sorry. These men were going through the routine, the Yom Kippurim routine. Maybe they didn't eat for the day. You know, that's what everybody thinks. We're going to afflict our soul and not eat anything. It's not about eating anything. There's lots of people who afflict their soul more than once a week if we're talking about fasting. No, that's not what Jehovah's talking about. We're talking about deep repentance. And these seem to be men who failed to repent and turn from their wicked ways. Man, they had perhaps as many as 3.5 years in the wilderness. This last time, the second time, it reminds me of the verse in Ecclesiastes 1:9. Let's go there. We're done here. I want you to see it. So I think this is the second time this is happening. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 1:9. Here we are. That which has been is that which will be, and that which is done is that which will be done. Is there anything new under the sun? Is there anything in which it may be said, see, this is new? The answer is, it's already been in ancient times before us. Is there going to be a cleansing of the earth? Is it possible that the goats that are identical, that are chosen by Lot, are chosen by Elohim? Remember, that's what Lot's all about, is to get Yahovah's will. Look at Jeremiah 7. I just want to give you some of these things before we get into this stuff. Or maybe it's Jeremiah 17 now that I think about it. Yeah. He says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, Yahovah, search the heart. I test the mind. You know what? When you're in Israel, with Israel, everybody looks like we don't know each other's hearts, do we? But Yahovah searches the heart. He tests the mind to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings. Could this be the final checkup, if you will, by Yahovah before we go into the wilderness? I think this is what it's about. I think this is what's going to happen in the last days. I may be wrong. I'm just trying to help you see what I see. Well, let's go back to where we were. That was, there we are, 16:1. Now Yahovah spoke to Moses after the death of his 2 sons. Oh no, look at this. Death of his 2 sons. I had to do some reading on this. Here's what it actually says. And Yahovah spoke to Moses after the death of Aaron's seed. It doesn't say 2 sons, it says seed. When they came before Yahovah's face and died. Isn't that interesting? Everybody knows which seed it was. There was 2 of them. But it doesn't say 2 in the scriptures here. When they came before Yahovah's face and died. They were bringing strange fire. We're going to get our fire. Aaron's going to get his fire from the, appears to me, the golden altar. He's going to put incense in his censer. And he's going to come before Yahovah. And Yahovah's going to appear in the smoke that's going to come from his censer in the holy place. The Kodesh Kodeshim, the most holy place. It says they died. And Yahovah said to Moses, speak to Aaron, thy brother. I'm reading on the right each time. I've rewritten all these verses so I can get a little bit more information. So while I'm reading on the right, you can compare it on the left. You're going to see there are subtleties that are there that are missed when we can use the actual Hebrew. And Yahovah said to Moses, speak to Aaron, thy brother, that he come not at all times into the holy, within the veil, before the mercy seat. This is where these guys were headed. Didn't make it. They died outside the tent, it appears to me, which is upon the ark. The mercy seat, which is upon the ark. I liked looking at some of these kinds of words. Kaporet, the lid. the cover that's on the ark, that he may not die. For in a cloud, Yahovah, I always tell you, Yahovah always appears in a cloud, anan. It says, as a covering of the sky, that is the nimbus or thundercloud. He comes in a cloud, and I will appear upon the mercy seat. Kapareth is the word that we're talking about for mercy seat, apparently. Yes. A lid. Appropriation. I wanted to define appropriation. The word refers to a lid that covered the ark of the testimony. Here's ancient Hebrew lexicon of the Bible. He just says, as a covering, a lid, as a covering. This must be Strong's. Yeah. A lid. This is word study. Noun meaning lid. Appropriation. This word refers to a lid that covered the ark of the testimony. He says, don't come near me without doing what you're supposed to do. But who can stand in his presence? Not to come just at any time into the holy place. No, don't do it. Look at this. There's some verses that we got to keep in mind. It says, who can endure the day of his coming? And who can stand when he appears? Israel will. Israel will be able to stand. For he is like a refiner's fire, and like launderer's soap. He will sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver. He will purify Levi's seed and purge them as gold and silver, that they may bring to Yahovah a minka in righteousness. Remember, we bring it to them, they bring it to Yahovah. Who can ascend into the hill of Yahovah? Or who may stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not lifted up his soul to an idol nor sworn deceitfully. Here's a few more. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey, for I will not go up in your midst, lest I consume you on the way. Remember, this is when he was talking to Moses. Moses says, no, you got to come with us. We don't want to go then. And when the people heard this bad news, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. His ornaments, we talked about that, was at the Tzitzi, I wonder. For Yahovah had said to Moses, say to Israel's seed, you are a stiff-necked people. I could have come up into your midst in one moment and consumed you. Now therefore take off your ornaments, that I may know what to do with you. Respect for Yahovah is essential. The unholy cannot abide with the holy. Therefore the Holy One sees imperfection, impurity, or anything that is not consistent with his image, especially within his chosen vessel, Israel. Yes! You know what? If you're going to be Israel, you've got to learn the fear of Yahovah and learn to keep his commandments. He will purge impurity from and by his holy presence. Just coming into his presence, it's going to be purged, and it's going to hurt. Therefore, Aaron and his sons and all subsequent priests are warned not to presume to come into his presence of the Holy One at all times, nor on their own terms. No, this is what Nadab and Abihu did. And Yahovah said to Moses, tell Aaron his brother not to come just any time into the holy place. Well, that's the verse we're on right now. Let's stop there. We'll go on to number 3. Thus shall Aaron come towards the holy. Look at this. This says, thus Aaron shall come into the holy place. with the blood of the young bull as a sin offering and the ram of a burnt offering. No. Look at, they're taking, here's what it says. Thus shall Aaron come towards the holy with a young bullock for sin and a ram for a burnt. He's not bringing it in now. He's going to bring it, he's coming right now. He's coming in to the court. He appears to be in his civis, plain clothes. He's bringing a young bullock for a kata'ah and a ram for a burnt. But because they translate this word, what is the word that they're going to use? I didn't put it here. They translated it as into instead of towards. It's coming towards. He's coming towards his place with these two things. He's not ready to bring the blood into it yet. Verse 3, no, it's not going to happen. There's things that have to happen first. Aaron is coming into the tabernacle courtyard towards the holy. He is bringing the two animals in with him. But he is not killing them yet. Can't bring the blood in yet. Yes, he's got to bring the blood in, but it isn't time yet. This is all about preparing Aaron for this day of coverings. It seems also that Aaron is arriving in his street clothes. That's why I say his civis, his street clothes, not the priestly garments. What are we talking about? A young bull for a sin offering, for a kata'ah, and a ram for a burnt offering. Here's what it says about the ram of the burnt offering, a male ram. That's what we're talking about, a ram. An olah or rising can be a male bull, a male ram, a male goat, or even a turtle dove or a young pigeon. Here, Yahovah is asking for a male ram. But he's not bringing the ram and the bull into the holy place. He's going to bring the blood into the holy place, but he's going to do it later. We'll see it. Well, you know what? There's no blood for a burnt offering that's going to go into the holy place at all. But an olah is not brought. None of the olah is brought into the into the holy place. So we've got to get a better understanding. Like I say, so many of these translations, it's confusing. It's really confusing to see what's going on. We've got to go to the Hebrew. Look what he's going to do. He brought in these animals, young bull for a kata'ah and a ram for an olah. Now it says, he shall put on the holy linen tunic, the linen trousers on his body. He shall be girded with a linen sash, and with a linen turban he shall be attired. These are holy garments. Therefore he shall wash his body in water and put them on. Aaron's the high priest, but he's not putting on the high priest's garments. Isn't that unusual? Have we ever noticed that? I've never noticed that. These are what the rest of the priests wear. All linen, white linen garments. Tunic, trousers, sash, turban. They're barefoot. Here's my translation. He shall put on the holy linen coat, and he shall have the linen breeches upon his flesh, and he shall be girded with a linen girdle, and with the linen mitre shall he be attired. These are holy garments. Therefore he shall wash his flesh in water and put them on. So he's going to wash, and then he's going to put them on. But here Aaron is putting on garments of a priest, not of the high priest. Why? Why is that? I always assumed that he would be coming towards the holy place with his priestly garments on. But you know what? We will see this is not always done by the high priest. Are there times when normal priests get to do this? It appears to me, remember Zechariah and Elizabeth? Yeah, it's probably Mark, I think, 1. I don't want to make a big deal of the New Testament, but it appears to me that Zechariah was the one who came into this holy place. How did they describe the holy place? Let's remember how they described it. It's really important that we see this. Holy place, inside the veil, before the mercy seat, which is on the ark, lest he die. No, it only happens once a year that somebody goes back there. Yom Kippurim is when it happens. And at that time, he's making a covering for himself and all the priests. Let's see what happens. Verse 5. And he shall take, I'm going to read it on the right. And he shall take from the assemblage, from the congregation, from the assemblage, from the assemblage of Israel's seat. This is what he's taking from the assemblage of Israel's seat. These are not things that he's bringing in. These are things that are coming from the assemblage of Israel's seed. They want to make it the congregation of the children of Israel. You could say Israel's seed's assemblage. 2 male goats for a sin, and 1 ram for a kata'ah. 2 for 1 kata'ah. And 1 ram for an olah. For an olah. These are the male goats, but only 1 will be for a kata'ah. Remember, the other one is going to be released into the wilderness. Here's some other people translated this. Fix this. This is just some different versions. And he shall take from the congregation of Israel's seed 2 he-goats. I wanted to make sure that they were he-goats. I wanted to have you see these are goats, he-goats. In fact, here's the word for the goat, azim. Azim. See, this is az, but this is azim. It's plural. These are male goats. When it's used in the plural, they're male. He-goats for a sin offering, and 1 ram for an olah. And let them take from Israel's seed 2 he-goats for an kata'ah, and 1 male sheep for an olah. He is to take from the community of Israel's people 2 male goats for a kata'ah and 1 ram for an olah. They look the same on the outside. They are both goats. I think it's best if you can't tell them apart. Yahovah is going to be the one who's going to tell them apart. Remember, the lot is going to be done with them. I want you to see a verse. This is in, 34 of Ezekiel. Yeah, I really want you to see this. I talk about this. I have this. This is Yom Kippurim. It comes right here. Yom Kippurim. And then I've got part 1, part 2, part 3. Here's 2 and 3. Talking about this particular day. And I talk about this passage in particular, I think in part 3. It says, I will feed my flock, and I will make them lie down, says Yahovah, says my master Yahovah. I will seek what was lost and bring back what was driven away. Remember what he says in Jeremiah 23, woe to you shepherds who destroy and scatter the sheep of my pastures. He says, I'm going to destroy you for destroying them. But I will destroy the fat. Yeah, let's go to Jeremiah. I think it's so good that we read these things. Let's read it. I want to get it just right. I quoted the first part all right. Woe to you, shepherds who destroy and scatter the sheep of my pastures. Therefore says Yehovah, Elohim of Israel, against the shepherds who feed my people. You've scattered my flock, driven them away, and not attended to them. Behold, I will attend to you for the evil of your doings. But look what he says. But I will gather the remnant of my flock out of the countries where I have driven them and bring them back to their folds. He's going to give them good shepherds. He's going to draw the sheep first, bring them back to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase. And I will set up shepherds over them who will feed them. And they shall fear no more, nor be dismayed, nor shall they be lacking. Fear no more. He's bringing them peace. How do I say that? Provision, protection, and instruction in righteousness is what these good shepherds are going to give the sheep who are coming back to Yehovah. And I think that this passage that we're looking at right now is going to demonstrate just that. I will seek what was lost and bring back what was driven away. Bind up the broken and strengthen what was sick. I will destroy the fat and the strong. These are the shepherds who were destroying and scattering the sheep of his pasture. And as for you, O my flock, this is Zaon. Zaon, remember, is sheep and goats. Why is it in Christianity they always want to make goats bad and sheep good? Folks, they're both the Zaon of his pasture, the flocks of his pasture. He says right here, behold, I will judge between sheep and sheep, between rams and goats. Is it too little for you to have eaten up the good pasture that you must tread down with your feet the residue of your pasture? And to have drunk the clear waters that you must foul the residue from your feet? This is what pastors are doing right now. You know what? There's an awful lot of pastors that know the truth. They know the truth. They know that their denomination is wrong, but they're still teaching the wrong stuff. Why? Because that's where their paycheck comes from. Ooh, it's an abomination. And have drunk the clear waters that you must foul the residue with your feet. Oh no, I just moved that. I know. Right here. And as for my flock, they eat what you have trampled with your feet, and they drink what you have fouled with your feet. Yeah, you've taught them lies, worthless and unprofitable things. Therefore, thus says Yehovah to them, behold, I will judge between the fat and the lean members of the flock, because you have pushed with side and shoulder, butted all the weak ones with your horns, and scattered them abroad. This is what we were talking about. You've scattered my sheep, driven them away, and not attended to them. Therefore, I will save my flock, and they shall no longer be prey. I will judge between the one member and another member, to establish one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them. He says, my servant David. Oh my goodness, you guys. Remember, Israel, the plural he, is like David. A heart after Yehovah's word. One shepherd over them, and he shall feed them, my servant David. He shall feed them and be their shepherd, and I, Yehovah, will be their Elohim. My servant David, I put the 144,000-ish, a prince among them. I, Yahovah, have spoken. I will make a covenant of peace with them and cause wild beasts to cease from the land, and they will dwell safely in the wilderness and sleep in the woods. I will make them and the places all around my hill a blessing, and I will cause showers to come down on their season, in their season. There shall be showers of blessings. Then the trees of the field shall yield their fruit, and the earth shall yield her increase. They shall be safe in their land, and they shall know that I am Yahovah, when I have broken the bands of their yoke and delivered them from the hands of those who enslaved them. This is the second Exodus. Yahovah is going to bring us out into the wilderness. And they shall no longer be prey for the nations, nor shall beasts of the land devour them. You know, after the great shaking of the earth, the beasts of the land are going to be hungry. Dogs, your dogs, my dogs maybe, are going to turn on us because they don't have the food anymore. They're going to turn into packs. It's going to be awful. And they shall no longer be prey for the nations, nor shall beasts of the land devour them, for they shall dwell safely, and no one shall make them afraid. I will raise up for them a garden of renown, and they shall no longer be consumed with hunger in the land, nor bear the shame of the Gentiles anymore. Hear that? There's the provision that Yahovah is going to provide for us. He says he's going to make it like a garden. Is it possible these fruit trees that you're supposed to wait 7 years for before you can eat from are going to grow practically overnight? I wonder. Thus they shall know that I, Yahovah their Elohim, am with them, and they, the house of Israel, are my people. We're talking about Ezra men, says my master Yahovah. You are my flock, the flock of my pasture. You are men, and I am your Elohim. Did you hear that? You are men. Men, men, men. And I am your Elohim, says my master Yahovah. This is what's happening in the last days. He's separating sheep from sheep and goat from goat. Two kids of goats for a kata'ah. That's what he's bringing. Or actually, that's what Israel's bringing to him, huh? 6. Now Aaron is to, I said offer. Let's fix that. Bring the bull which he brought with him into the courtyard. Hear that? He brought it into the courtyard. He didn't bring it into the other thing. In verse 3, as for the kata'ah. And Aaron shall bring his bullock of the kata'ah of bullock. Let's say it like this. Bullock. A kata'ah, which is for himself, and he shall cover himself and his house. Remember, it's not his wife and children. He's covering himself and the other priests. Covering. This word, here's the word right here, kafar, gets translated as atonement. We call this the Day of Atonement. Folks, let's get away from these religious words that are leading us astray. He's covering Israel. This is the day of coverings. He's covering several things this day. Himself, the priests. He's going to cover the ark. He's going to cover the tabernacle. The tabernacle. It actually says a tent of meetings. And all Israel. That's what's being covered on this day. Not atoned. We're not atoning for an ark. We're not atoning for the tent of meetings. We're covering it. It's been defiled throughout the year, unknown. We, Israel's seed, came in unclean, unknowing. We had been contaminated and made unclean by who knows what. And we came in thinking we were clean, but we weren't. And this is the day that the tabernacle is going to be cleaned. The tent of meeting is going to be cleaned. The Olah altar is going to be cleaned. Comes from this word. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. This is the same word that we're talking about. Kafar. Kafar. Here it is right here. What is it? 13:22, 37:22. Here's 37:22. Same word. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Isn't it interesting that this is happening just before Noah is going into the world that we know today, from the antediluvian world, the post-flood world? We're getting ready to go from that world into the millennial kingdom. But we're also going to be covered also. Covered inside and out with gopher, pitch. Come from the same word. Here it is, cover. It's not atonement, it's cover. They say abstract, atonement. But this is what they do. A verb to cover. This is a word study. Yeah, this must be word study. A verb meaning to cover, to forgive, to expiate, to reconcile. This is what's going on. We're being covered. Here's kofar, properly, to cover. Okay, well, you get the idea. Anyway, they use this word village. This was kind of interesting. A village is a community outside the city walls, covered with protection from the city. It is covered by its relationship to that city. We are covered by our relationship to Yehovah. If we're Israel. If we're not Israel, we're not going to be covered. We got no relationship. Ooh, so cool. 7. And he shall take the 2 goats. Here it is. The 2 goats. The 2 is there in this case. Sair, 2 goats, and present them before Yahweh's face at the door of the tent of meeting. Before Yahweh's face. North side of the altar of Olah. Tent of meeting, it's the Ohel. There it is, tent. And Aaron shall cast lots. Hear that? Aaron is going to cast lots. Remember, a lot. We got 2 stones that look alike. I think. Well, maybe not. I was thinking maybe they're the 2 stones, the Urim and the Tumim, that's in Aaron's pouch. But he's not wearing his clothes right now, is he? He's not wearing the high priest's clothes. He's wearing the clothes of a priest. But we're going to have 2 stones, probably, that look and feel just alike. One black, one white. And we're going to pick. This is going to be for that goat. This white one's going to be for this goat. Whichever one gets picked is the one that's going to be killed. Or maybe they'll say it's the one that's going to be the Azazel. Let's find out. It doesn't say. And Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats. 1 lot for Yehovah. That's the one that's going to be killed. The other lot for Azazel. Azazel is departure, the goat of the departure. To go away, hence to disappear. You know what? Yehovah is saying that this goat is supposed to live. What do the Jews do? They take the goat out and throw it over a cliff. What's the sense of that? Where did Yehovah tell him to do that? Because they got the idea that because this goat has sin on it, that somehow it's going to contaminate them when it wanders back into the city, so they're just going to kill it. No, I would rejoice when seeing that goat. What a lucky goat you are! This is the goat that's going to live. The other goat died. Funny. Number 9. And Aaron shall bring the goat on which Yehovah's lot fell, and bring it as a kata'ah. He's going to kill it. Bring it as a kata'ah for sin. Verse 10. But the goat on which the lot fell for Azazel, for what do we call that? For departure. The goat of departure shall be presented alive before Yehovah's face for covering, for sending him for departure into the wilderness. Remember we were talking about this word wilderness, midbar? Look what it says, in a sense of driving a pasture. I think of this wilderness as being a sort of pasture of Yehovah. We are in his care, and this goat is being delivered from the knife into Yehovah's care. He's departing into Yehovah's care. The Azel represents Israel, who will pass through the wilderness, desolation, tribulation, and arrive in the millennial kingdom alive and well. This is what we're talking about. The Azel is like Noah, who is covered in the ark and delivered from the antediluvian world into the next. His ark was covered inside and out with gopher. We are covered by Yehovah in these last days. I think for deliverance into another kingdom. Could that be what's happening? Could that be what Yom Kippurim is all about? 5 days later, we're going to celebrate Sukkot. And it appears to me that the 7th day is going to be the millennial year. But we still have more to look forward to even after that, because there's going to be another deliverance into another kingdom, the 8th day, a new heaven and a new earth that's going to take place in another 1,000 years. Oh man, we have so much to look forward to. Do you think those who will be delivered into the millennial kingdom could live 1,000 years? Is he going to redo the earth again, perhaps, so that we live longer? Or will we just live longer? Can't wait to see what happens. Verse 11. And Aaron shall bring the bullock, the kata'ah. This says the kata'ah, ha-kata'ah, which is for covering. That's what it's for. It's for covering himself and his house. And he shall kill the bull, which is for himself. There is the bull that he's going to kill. Then he shall take a censer. And he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from off the altar before Yehovah's face. From off the altar before Yehovah's face. You know, I wonder, which altar is it? Is the golden altar before Yehovah's face? Certainly, we know for sure that the Olah altar is before Yehovah's face. because it always says before Yahweh's face on the north side of the altar. And he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from off the altar before Jehovah's face, his hands full of sweet incense beaten small, and shall bring it within the veil. Here he is, first time coming into the veil. And he shall put the incense on the fire before Jehovah, that the cloud of incense may cover the mercy seat. There's that same word that we were talking about. Kaparet. Cover the mercy seat. That is upon the testimony, that he may not die. The mercy seat is the lid covering over the ark that has the testimony in it. We talked about that. Let's move on. 14. He shall take some of the blood of the bullock and sprinkle it with his finger upon the mercy seat. Eastward. This tells us which way the mercy seat is facing. Eastward. This is the same way that the tabernacle is facing. And before the mercy seat, he shall sprinkle the blood with his finger 7 times. So on the mercy seat, and he's going to sprinkle it on the floor before the mercy seat. Probably dip it 7 times. This is the blood of the bull for himself and his household that he is sprinkling with his finger on the mercy seat. He can't be of any use to Yahovah until he is made holy, covered by what he's doing here today and his fellow priests. 15. Then shall he kill the goat, the kata'ah. Look at, they want to say the goat of the sin offering. Why do we have all those things in there? It's the goat, the kata'ah, that is for the people. That is for really, it doesn't even say for people. It's for the people. It just says for That's all it says. And bring his blood within the veil. And do that, and do with that blood that he did with the blood of the bullock. So he's doing one bullet. Now he's going to do the goat. The goat's for the people. And do with that blood as he did with the bullock, and sprinkle it upon the mercy seat and before the mercy seat. On it and before it. This is the second time inside the veil before the mercy seat. Now he sprinkles the blood of the goat on the mercy seat and before the mercy seat 7 times, just as he did with the bull. For a people. The people that we're talking about is Israel. Israel's people. The people that the covering is being made for is Israel. Those men who are his inside and out. They, with their families and probably servants, will pass alive like Noah into the next world, the millennial kingdom. Will the servants go? You know what? It seems like they will. I'll tell you one reason I think that. Let me go to Joel chapter 2. Joel chapter 2. He's talking about Israel's seed. Just start verse 27. Then you shall know that I am in the midst of Israel. I am Yahovah, your Elohim, and there is no other. Who's he in the midst of? Israel. My people shall never be put to shame. He's talking about Israel. And it shall come to pass afterwards that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Whose flesh? Gentile flesh? No, Israel's sons, your flesh. Your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions. And also on men servants. Your men servants. Here, look at this. They don't want to have servants. It's also on the servants, the Evadim. The Evadim, on the servants and on the maidservants, I will pour out my spirit in those days. I think because they are possessions of Israel, they're coming along just like their women are possessions of Israel, their wives, their women, and their sons and their daughters. It says, so he shall make, and he shall cover. Oh yeah, look at the red. I try to mark out the words that are added. This is just words that, you know what, if we want to make atonement, we have to add other words that just don't work. This says, and he shall cover the holy, not or, because of the uncleanliness of Israel's seed. He's covering the holy because of Israel's seed. We, Israel's seed, have polluted it. This is what this day is all about. And he shall cover the holy because of the uncleanliness of Israel's seed and because of their transgressions. Transgressions is the word they're using here as rebellion, revolt. In all their kata, or that's kata'ah, in all their sin. And so he shall do for the tent of Moed, the meeting tent, that remaineth among them in the midst of their uncleanliness. How does he cover the holy? What is the holy? In this case, it turns out it's the tent that is the holy that we're talking about. He says, and there shall be no man in the tent of meeting when he goes in to cover in the holy, until he shall come out and cover over himself and over his household and over all Israel's assemblage. In other words, there's not going to be any other men in this tent while all this cleansing is taking place. Only him. Only he is going to be in and out of that tent with blood. 18. And he shall go out to the altar that is before Yehovah and make a covering. Oh, yeah, got it read on this side. And he shall go out to the altar that is before Yehovah's face and cover it, and shall take the blood of the bullock and of the blood of the goat and put it on the horns of the altar all around it. Remember, he's doing it for himself, and he's also doing it for Israel. What we're talking about appears to be the rulers of Israel, the heads of Israel. We call them the prince. In a sense, it's kind of like his son, isn't it? Is a prince of a king? I mean, is the son of a king a prince? I think so. He's putting it on the horns of the altar right now. Sorry. He shall sprinkle the blood upon it with his finger 7 times and cleanse it and hallow it from the uncleanliness of Israel's seed. Again, we have, unbeknownst to us, really, contaminated Yehovah's altar, his tent of meeting, and although we haven't been inside the veil, we've contaminated it just because the tent is contaminated. And cleanse it. Here's the word we're talking about. And cleanse it. Tahar. He shall sprinkle the blood 7 times and cleanse it from Israel's seed. This is about covering that's going on here. It's going to cleanse these things. bright that is, pure, physical, clear, unadulterated, Levitically uncontaminated, morally innocent, holy. This is word study. The verb meaning to clean, to make clean, to be pure, to make pure. Yeah, this is what we're talking about. Not only is the tabernacle being made pure, not only is the holy place being made pure, not only is the Olah altar being made pure, but so are the priests, the priest, and all the priests. And we'll see all Israel is also going to be made clean on this day. Here is Ancient Hebrew Lexicon of the Bible. Here's the word right here, clean. What is the word we're looking at here in particular? Tahar. Yeah, tahar. Tahar. There it is right there. Tahar. Clean. Clean. Word study. This is another word. Kodesh. Holy. Did we use holy in this verse? Oh, yeah. There it is right there. Kodesh. Serve, clean. Kodesh. Kodesh. Must come from a verb meaning to be set apart, to be holy, to show oneself holy, to be treated as holy. Set apart. Here, this is a prostitute, special, set apart. How about covering that cleanses and sets one apart? That's what it is, a covering that cleanses and sets one apart. This is what this day is all about. Cleansing us and setting us apart from all the nations. Remember, we are going into the wilderness like that Azazel goat is going into the wilderness. 20 is where we're at. And when he hath made an end of, why do I have reconciling? Karab, that's he should have made an end of reconciling, cleaning and cleansing the holy, the tabernacle, and the altar. He shall bring the live goat. There's the bring. He shall bring the live goat. Here's the live goat. He just killed the Yahovah's goat, the one that's going to be killed. The blood's going to be brought inside, put on the altar outside, and then it's going to be burned outside the camp, where the ashes are dumped. And he has made. Let me look at this one for a second. I don't like what I did with this. And Kala, when he is finished. Kafar, covering, reconciling. Yeah, this is an end of covering. Yeah, well, that's what I have, covering. There it is right there. I'm just going to move it though. C-O-V-E-R-I-N-G. Okay, so he has made an end of covering. What is covering? Covering is cleansing and hallowing. When he has made an end of covering the holy, the tabernacle, this is the tent of meeting, the altar, he shall bring the live goat. What's he going to do with the live goat? Let's find out. And Aaron shall lay both his hands on the head of the live goat, and confess over him all the iniquities of Israel's seed. Hear that? Israel's seed is confessing their iniquities. He's confessing the iniquities of Israel's seed, and all their rebellion in all their sins, putting them upon the head of the goat, and shall send them away by the hand of a fit man into the wilderness. See, this is what the Jews do. They see this Azazel goat not as a lucky goat, but as a contaminated goat because it's got all the sins on it. Well, like we don't. I put this verse in the next. Bothered me because if Israel is covered, why is it still bearing sin? Well, the sin doesn't go away, but the sin is covered. I later realized that their sin is fully confessed sin. Oh, yeah, this is what the Day of Coverings is all about. Afflicting our souls, confessing our sins and those of our fathers. After Israel came out of Egypt, and just before they finally entered the Promised Land, Moses said this about them. Are they righteous? No, they're not righteous. Look what it says. Therefore understand today that Yehovah your Elohim is he who goes before you as a consuming fire. He will destroy them and bring them down before you. So you shall drive them out and destroy them quickly. It's going to happen again. As Yehovah has said to you, do not think in your heart. After Yehovah your Elohim has cast them out before you, saying, because of my righteousness, Yehovah has brought me out to possess this land. But it is because of the wickedness of these nations that Yehovah is driving them out before you. It is not because of your righteousness or your uprightness in your heart that you go in to possess the land. Do you hear that? They know their sins. This goat is being set free because he has confessed his sins. I think there's a shadow picture here that is demonstrating for us that this goat is representing those who are going to go into the next kingdom. But because of the wickedness of these nations, Yehovah your Elohim drives them out from before you, that he may fulfill the word of Yehovah swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Therefore understand that Yehovah your Elohim is not giving you this land to possess because of your righteousness, for you are a stiff-necked people. Yes, we are stiff-necked people. Here's what David said. Some of the things that David said I think is very apropos. Remember, David is representing, in a sense, Israel's seed. Saul is going to represent what we would probably call most would call him the Antichrist. I don't think there really is an Antichrist. There's got to be a Christ to be an Antichrist. The 144,000 are going to be probably anointed by Yehovah, just as Moses was anointed by Yehovah. But Moses was really never had oil put on his head, did he? He was just sealed by Yehovah. Well, here's what David has to say. I acknowledge my sin to you, and my iniquity I have not hidden. This is what's going on with the goat. I said, I will confess my transgressions to Yehovah, and you forgave the iniquity of my sin. Yes, in this case, he's covering the iniquity of our sin. I made my wrongdoings clear to you, and I did not keep back my sin. I said, I will put it all before Yehovah, and you took away my wrongdoings and my sin. Look at this. He says he covers. He who covers his sins will not prosper, but whoever confesses and forsakes them will have mercy. Here is Leviticus 23. This is about Yom Kippurim. And it shall be a holy convocation to you. You shall afflict your souls and bring a korban to Yehovah's fire. And you shall do no work on that same day, for it is a day of coverings, to cover for you before Yehovah. For any person who is not afflicted in soul on that same day shall be cut off from among his people. We're talking about men. And any person who does any work on that day, I will destroy from among his people. You shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It shall be to you as a Sabbath, a solemn rest, and you shall afflict your souls on the 9th day of the month at evening. This is how his days go, from evening to evening. We're talking the day of coverings. On the 9th day of the month at evening, from evening to evening, you shall celebrate your Sabbath. Oh, so much things to be learned in just that short passage. 16:22. And the goat shall bear upon him all the iniquities to the land not inhabited. Does that sound like maybe he's starting new? And he shall send Shalak, the goat, into the wilderness, the midbar, the pasture, the new pasture, under Yahovah's care, until we throw our goat over the cliff. 23. Then Aaron shall come into the tent of meeting, the Ohel of Moed, and shall put off the linen garments. Look at that. He put on the linen garments. Now he's taking them off. What's he going to put on? It doesn't say. Which he put on when he went into the holy, and leave them there. But these are the garments that he put on in verse 4. They're all the linen garments. Now it says, and he shall wash his flesh with water in the holy place, and put on his garments. What garments is he going to put on? His civilian garments? His plainclothes garments? The priestly garments? I don't know. And come forth and bring his burnt, his olah, the people's olah, and cover himself and the people. He's bringing olah, one for himself, one for the people. I said, this is the ram Aaron brought in 3 for himself, and the ram for the congregation that Jehovah's son at Israel's seed brought. Here it is right here. And he shall take from the assembly of Israel's seed 2 goats, 2 kids of goats as a kata'ah, and 1 ram as an olah. So there's the ram now that we're going to use. These are both olahs. The olah of the peoples, his olah, and the olahs of the people. What happens with an olah? Everything gets burned up except the hides. The hides are have to be burned outside the camp because they can't go to the priest. Let's find out. In the place that is Kodesh, Kadosh. Sounds like Aaron is making these olahs or rising in his street clothes. Did he change into his high priest's garments? I didn't see it if he did. I'm not sure what he's wearing right now. Next verse. 25 says, the fat of the kata'ah he shall burn on the altar. And he who released. Now, here's several things going on right now. He's going to burn the fat of the sin offerings. We were just doing the olah. So don't confuse the olah with the kata'ah. The kata'ah, the only thing he's done with that was he brought the blood into the holy place, and he put the blood on the olah altar, on the horns of this altar that he just burnt the olah on. Now he's taking the kata'ah and dealing with the fat, because he hasn't finished that yet. And it says the fat of the kata'ah The fat of the kata'ah he shall burn upon the altar. I always try and get rid of these extraneous words that kind of lead us down the wrong road, put new ideas in our minds that don't need to be there. And he who released the goat, so here's a man who let the goat go. He released the goat as an Azazel. Oh, here, I've got to finish this though. This is the fat. Look what happens with these bulls. The priests and the elders, the bullock. Here, where am I going to go? I'm going to go down here. The priest burns the fat, the kidneys upon the altar, and the rest of the bullock is burned outside the camp. No one eats the meat. So what are we going to burn outside the camp? We're going to beat the flesh, and the head, and the legs, and the offal are the things that are going to be burned outside the camp. Here it is. And the bull for the kata'ah, and the goat for the kata'ah, whose blood was brought in to make a covering in the holy place, shall be carried outside the camp. There it is. Shall be carried forth without the camp. And they shall burn in the fire their skins, their flesh, and their dung, the offal, for a covering in the Kodesh. Why do I have a covering in the Kodesh? Right here, brought in to cover the holy, for a covering in the Kodesh. Oh, that was brought in to cover in the holy. This is just confusing us. Remember, these are things when it's used for the people or for the priest, the whole congregation, or the priest. We're going to burn the stuff outside the camp, and we're going to bring the blood into the altar. In this case, we brought it even further because we put it on inside the veil, didn't we? Normally, we're going to just bring it to the golden altar and put it on the horns there and sprinkle it before Yehovah. Ooh, it's so interesting to see how all these pieces fit together. 28. And he that burneth them shall wash his clothes. This is the man who burnt the flesh, the offal. There's a lot of stuff that he had to bring out there. I wonder if it was more than one person, perhaps. I mean, you got a whole bull, big animals. And he that burneth them shall wash his clothes, bathe his flesh in water, and afterwards he shall come into the camp. All right. And this shall be a statute forever to you, that in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, ye shall afflict your souls. Your nefesh, y'all's nefesh. Here, this is possession right here. Here's nefesh, the first 4 verses. See if I can get it. There's nefesh. See, it looks just like that, nefesh. This is thy nefesh, the yod, and this is y'all's flesh, y'all's nefesh, and do no work at all, whether he is the Ezra or the ger that sojourneth among you. Remember, the ger and the Ezra are men. They combined make the nation of Israel. They're not Israel. The ger are not Israel. The ger is a ger who dwells with Israel. But together, they are the group that makes up Israel. Our goal is to become Israel. 30. For on that day shall the priest cover you, to cleanse you, and ye shall be clean, all your sins before Yahovah's face. Who's the your we're talking about? Talking about Israel's seed. Jehovah is speaking to plural men. For on that day the priest shall cover you. Okay, new thought. He says, it is a Sabbath of solemn rest to you, and ye shall afflict your souls a statute, by a statute forever. It is as a Sabbath to you. This is why we call certain days high Sabbaths. They're not a weekly Sabbath, but they're still a Sabbath. They're a day of rest. This says, and the covered priest, who is anointed and who is consecrated to minister in the priest's office in his father's stead, shall put on the linen garments, even the holy garments. Hear that? And the covered priest, who is anointed and who is consecrated to minister in the priest's office in his father's stead, shall put on the linen garments, even the holy garments. It looks to me like now the high priest, or the one chosen to be the high priest, is now going to put on the holy garments, the ephod, and all that goes with that for the high priest. Now it's going to happen. Now look at what it says. And this is like, this says then. Okay, it's not and, it's and. And cover, or he shall cover. This really says and cover. It doesn't say and he shall cover. I have and cover the holy. These are one of the things that he covered. The holy, the ohel of Moed, the tent of meeting, the altar. Mizbach, the altar. And he shall cover, and cover over the priests. I've got that in there twice. And he shall cover over the priests and over the people, the of the assembly. He shall cover. So what is being covered on this day of coverings? The holy place, the ark, the tent, the burnt altar, the priests, really the priest, the priests, and the Israel. He shall cover. This is day of coverings and cleansing of kata'ah. I say breaches. I haven't been using that so much with you, but we're talking about kata'ah, the sin of a spiritual Israel as a corporate group. You're not going to have your sin removed if you're not part of Israel. This is why we work so hard to become Israel. This is why I teach the Coming Out series, leaving one kingdom, joining yourself to Yehovah's kingdom. This is why I teach the Born Again series, so that we can see how a Gentile becomes a Ger, and then how the Ger becomes an Ezra. You're not covered if you're not Israel. You got to become Israel. Last verse. And this shall be an everlasting statute, an olam statute to you, to cover over Israel's seed for all their sins once a year. And he did as Jehovah commanded Moses. This is the point of this day. And this shall be an everlasting statute to you, to cover over Israel's seed for all their sins once a year. And he did as Jehovah commanded Israel. Israel's seed's sins are covered over on this day. We must become Israel in order to be covered. Well, that is the goal, isn't it? We must become Israel. Well, next week, we're going to talk about Leviticus 17. I put 1 through 5 statutes regarding the killing of animals and blood. You know what? You can eat clean food, but there's more to the story. We've built our theologies on what is convenient. Yahovah has requirements on the food that we eat. Yes, they have to be clean. If they're animals, they have to have split hooves and multiple stomachs. But there's more. How they're killed, who kills them, are all important. Can the world kill our food for us? That's what we think. I think we need to broaden our understandings, maybe deepen our understandings. Well, we're going to talk about that next week. I think you'll find it very, very interesting. It changed my life when I found it for the first time 3 years ago. I haven't eaten the same since. All right. Well, we're going to stop for now. We will come back next week and talk about Leviticus 17. Thank you so much for joining me. I so appreciate you being here. All right. Have a great day. Love you tons. Bye now.